Hey, welcome back everyone. Now, as we've reported previously, the Chinese Communist Party has been using various means to gain control over Latin America. A lot of this ties into government corruption. A lot of it ties into underhanded deals of the CCP. And today we're going to be looking at how the Chinese Communist Party is gaining control over an emerging oil market that will give them a lot of influence over the global oil industry. They're using corruption and other means, just like they always do, to do this move. And so to learn more about this, I recently spoke with Agostino Von Hassell. He's head of the intelligence company Repton Group, and he has a lot of research on how the Chinese Communist Party has been using corruption and other means to gain influence in Latin America. We're going to look at how this is being done there, how it's affecting the United States, and how this model is being replicated by the CCP and other parts of the world. Now folks, as a quick update for everyone, you might have seen we're doing more interviews now. Now this channel has two main focuses. One has been news updates and analysis, the other has been the in-depth interviews. Now I feel the interviews can help bring useful discussion on topics that don't nearly get enough coverage. We can also look at some investigative topics with the interviews as well and highlight some different research you might not see elsewhere. Now going forward, I'm going to be focusing Crossroads on these in-depth interviews. But with that said, we're also going to keep the news segments going forward, but we're going to be putting those on a new channel, which are going to basically have the same format, same basic types of analysis we've been doing, same everything, just a different channel. Now, the use of the new channel is just to keep a stronger focus on each of these elements. So to follow the daily news coverage that I've been doing previously, please subscribe to the China Report. I'll have a link in it to the description below. Again, really appreciate your support. Welcome back everyone. We're going to be speaking today with Agostino Von Hassell. He's a retired major in the U.S. Marine Corps. He was an intelligence officer for the U.S. government and the U.S. military, and he currently runs a global intelligence organization, which is the Repton Group. He's going to be talking with us today about some of his findings and research about Chinese Communist Party operations in Guyana. So Agostino, it's great having you on Crossroads.
And may I add to this, it's China's expanding influence in the Caribbean, the soft underbelly of these United States.
That's right. And so the Chinese Communist Party has been developing Latin America alongside Russia and Iran, actually, as in order to what they call surround the cities with the countryside. It's a Mao-era strategy, targeting the United States, the US being the city in this regard, Latin America, Canada being the countryside, gaining influence in the areas surrounding the United States to thereby be able to influence it indirectly. Is this accurate?
That is very accurate, and China is adhering to the policy or strategy of the string of pearls. They're doing the same thing in countries like Sudan, Angola, ports all around the world, to exert influence, political and economic.
Yeah, so with the string of pearls, the Chinese Communist Party has been going into different countries at major trade choke points, building ports there first, then building military bases at the ports. The belief is that China, as part of its naval push, is trying to build a blue water navy. And in terms of controlling maritime trade, this is also a big push for them. But yeah, like you mentioned too, a lot of that has to do with One Belt, One Road initiative, and with other operations to gain political influence through these operations, through the control of ports. Now, in the Caribbean, what are you seeing in terms of Chinese Communist Party operations?
The Chinese started easy by taking control over the Panama Canal after the United States gave up control of the Panama Canal. And they run the Panama Canal now. And they have expanded from there and to be active as partners in the major new oil fields of Guyana, Suriname, where they in many cases are one-third partner. Secondly, they are very willing to bribe, to put money into the governments in those countries, in part to support companies like Huawei and ZTE, and they have no shame about it because they know nobody's going to say anything.
And so when it comes to Guyana in particular, Guyana recently discovered these large oil fields off their coast. The Chinese Communist Party has been doing influence operations in Guyana. What is the scale? I know you've mentioned that there's corruption. What's the scale of it?
Okay, the oil field of Guyana is larger than all the oil reserves of Mexico. It's in the water, in the ocean. It is a direct competition to the now moribund Venezuelan oil fields. And properly exploring those oil fields will give the Communist Party and its minions direct access to cheap oil.
In terms of the global oil markets, now China's been saying that by, within a set amount of time, really not too long, they want to become, they say, reduce their carbon emissions, become carbon neutral. At the same time, they're not showing signs of this. They seem to be expanding these operations. What is China's actions around the oil industry as it relates to Guyana show us on this?
The only things they're doing off Suriname and off Guyana, and you can't keep those things separate, is to pump oil, and a fair bit of it gets shipped back to mainland China at a high profit level that allows China to reduce its dependence on Iranian oil and that very fragile transportation paths through the Straits of Malacca.
Now, strategically, what is the significance for the United States? Why would the United States government have to care about this?
If you look at it from Washington, and this country has, unfortunately, a long tradition of ignoring things right at our footsteps. When I was a young infantry officer, unforgettable for me, in Honduras, in Central America, the US built a road there in 1942, this big memorial stone. That was a time when the United States actually was active in Central America. And to build a road in the middle of World War II in Honduras, which nobody cared about, was a different approach towards controlling that vital component that supports the policies of Washington. We have abandoned, for all intents and purposes, sponsoring, supporting these democracies like Guyana or Suriname. And in the case of Guyana, it's a very sad thing. They operate under the British system, common law, adhering to democracy, and through outside bribery and everything else, they stopped helping. We have given up. We're not willing to get involved.
And why is this? Because I know in some of my own research, I know that the Chinese Communist Party, through different methods, is subverting a lot of Latin America through their One Belt, One Road initiative, through other programs.
Yes, the One Road does not affect Latin America and South America.
It does not affect it?
No,
How
sir.
so?
The One Road is basically linking China and ultimately into Europe, trying to recreate the old Silk Road.
Yes.
But they look at the soft countries, which are close to the US mainland, as a future base if it were to come to a shooting war.
And so in other words, their interest is not restoring these trade. In other words, trade is not the main objective. You believe military strategy is the main objective.
It is power, maintaining power, and future power is not necessarily having a bunch of naval ships, but it is to control money and information.
And so how does money and information tie into this military objective?
Huawei and ZTE control information.
Huawei and ZTE, that's right, they have a lot of influence in Latin America.
and especially Guyana and Suriname. And they can read everybody's email, and China likes the dominance of the monopoly holder of telecommunications inside Guyana. It's a company called GT&T, which in turn is owned by a Massachusetts company, which retrieves $90 million a year in profit. And they have gone out of their way to make sure they retain that monopoly. And that is the old government, which finally got voted out a few months ago. But controlling information, as you very well know from your own business, is power. Manipulating information is power. Knowing who writes what on the internet is power.
And so the Chinese Communist Party, through these operations, is controlling information in Latin America.
At least they know who says what. It's still a little touch away from controlling. It is access to information. Think if all your emails, I know you guys get hacked frequently, but if attempted hacked, but if all your emails are accessible to Beijing, you wouldn't be happy.
And that's the situation in Latin America then, because of the control of infrastructure by ZTE and Huawei.
Huawei and their aggressive bribery of the dominant phone company in Guyana as well as in Suriname.
Now, we hear a lot about the Chinese Communist Party using bribery, using honey traps, using other methods to gain control over, compromise, or in some countries, possibly even kill through different proxies, individuals who they deem useful or a threat. To what extent are they doing this in Latin America?
Bribery has been for centuries an acceptable way of doing business in Latin America. Mexico, all these countries. The Chinese have been paying out very substantial sums of money to key figures in the Guyanese government. The most critical persons were a lady called Cassie Hughes, Minister of Telecommunications, who upheld the monopoly. The permanent secretary of the Ministry of Telecommunications, Derek Cummings, and people like that in power in the Guyanese government. And they resisted by any which way possible liberalizing or opening up the telecommunications market to the detriment of the Guyanese people. You don't have competition between like Verizon and AT&T and whoever here. You're stuck with one company. That government finally got voted out. It took 2 years. That's a different story. The husband of the former Minister of Telecommunications is an attorney who now operates out of Texas and works directly with ExxonMobil, who is the dominant partner in the oil exploration field, along with a Chinese company and Hess Petroleum. And he also has exerted influence to maintain the monopoly his wife supports. There's a company in Massachusetts a publicly owned company called American Telephone International, AT&I, out of Massachusetts, and they retrieve about $80 to $90 million in profit from Guyana per year. That gives you an idea of why we pay so much for our cell phones. AT&I is hiding their illegal payments, and the US government has not properly cracked down on them. The key culprit there is a man called Justin Benincasa, who is the chief financial officer of AT&I, who has wired money, and that has been confirmed through banking sources in the United States, out of Arkansas. Justin Benincasa is a typical New England person operating out of Massachusetts, and for reasons beyond my understanding, runs a hunting club in Arkansas and uses Arkansas bank accounts to transfer money. AT&I also is very closely linked to Hong Kong/Chinese-based businesses, and money has been going back and forth. And right now they are desperate to figure out how they can use the leverage, which is evaporating, to retain the monopoly. Because the new government has said they are going to liberalize the telecommunications market.
So in other words, what we're seeing here in Guyana, Suriname, is a telecommunications company having a monopoly over the industry, and through marriage, them also having influence within the oil projects and also being engaged with US-based companies in terms of moving money to try to maintain control. Is this accurate?
Correct. And the US company is one of the key culprits, because to retain that profit flow, they know they have to exert influence. And influence in a tiny country of 750,000 people, which would cover like 5 square blocks of Manhattan, through money is critical. That works. And it's an utterly corrupt company. And they had election problems. The head of the election committee of Guyana recently got arrested for, let's be polite, ineptness. Possibly.
Great. Agostino Von Hassell, it's a real pleasure having you again on Crossroads.
Joshua, thank you so much.
Now, with that said, folks, we're broadcasting 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and I also do a live Q&A on Sundays at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, so tune in for that. Also, if you want to support this channel, the best way to do so is to subscribe to the Epoch Times, either in print or online. Now, as I've mentioned, I've been with the Epoch Times since 2006, and I'm a senior investigative reporter still at the publication. The reason I've been with them so long is because they really do stand for what journalism used to be. This includes upholding all the ethics that journalists are supposed to uphold, including seeking the truth and reporting it, and being considerate of the impact that journalism can have on the lives of people. So if you want to support our mission to uphold truth and tradition, please subscribe to the Epoch Times. Again, we really appreciate your support. With that said, stay informed and stay free.